Hello guys, and welcome to another video which is about premiums that I personally regret buying. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that just because something's on this list then it's outright bad, but it does mean that I personally had a bad experience with the vehicle, and I'll be telling you exactly why that was. So maybe if you've considered buying one of these, you should think about it quite carefully. As always, I recommend waiting for the sales. With there being a sale just around the corner, it might be worth doing some thinking before whipping out your wallet. So don't forget to smash that like and subscribe, and we'll get into these interesting premiums. Now, we'll start off with our first stinker, and that's going to be the T3 in rank 1 of the Soviet tree. It's a Panzer IIIJ. Yeah, there's nothing special, nothing different. It's literally just a Panzer IIIJ, but in the Soviet tree. You can probably grind this out in about half an hour just by playing Germany in the German tree. And so you might ask, why did you buy this thing? Well, if you've been to one of my streams in the past, you might know that I'm a fan of funny decal combinations, making naughty words or other symbols. And I don't mean the edgy, oh, I'm gonna get banned for this symbols. It's more, well, I mean, it's mainly dick jokes, I'll be real. Because I, as a grown adult man, still find that funny. For example, here is my masterpiece. Do you prefer big nuts or peen hot? Let me know in the comments down below. Anyway, the problem with the T3 is that at the time I purchased it, it no longer came with the haha funny decal, which was the reason I was buying it in the first place. So I was stuck with a useless rank 1 premium tank that I never played. It's not an event vehicle, it's just a normal premium, so there's literally no reason to ever play it. It's not even OP, it is quite literally just a Panzer III. In fact, I think the footage that you're watching right now is either my first or second game ever playing this thing, and I bought it years ago. So we have lesson number 1. Check what you're buying before you click buy. Next though, we do have an unavoidably terrible plane, possibly one of the worst premium planes in the entire game. And that is the Harrier GR.1 in the British tree. And where do I even start with this thing? It has terrible turn performance, it's a slow subsonic plane, and it has no flares at 9.7. It also can't carry an especially big payload, meaning that you can at most get one base provided you can actually reach it. Because you've got to bear in mind, a lot of maps get air spawns now as well, and one of the old advantages of the Harrier was that it has very, very fast acceleration off the runway, so you can get out ahead above the rest of your team. Now that everyone gets air spawns, that's not really a thing anymore either. So why do I own this thing? Well, at the time when I purchased it, it was either this or nothing. The F4 junk and the MiG-21 bis hadn't actually been added to the game yet. And I really wanted to grind out top tier Britain because you may have noticed I am a British. So the tech tree was interesting to me for that reason. And I was finding said tech tree to be particularly painful where I was stuck, which is around ranks 5 and 6. And I knew that the Harrier was bad when I bought it, but I thought to myself, like, how bad could it be? You know, I'll just grind through some vehicles, like, what's the worst that could happen? Never do this. Learn from my mistake. Now, there are ways to mitigate this flying disaster, the first of which is that under the belly you can take 2 incendiaries and some rockets instead of the old loadout of 5 bombs. This lets you both get a base and carry rockets, which you can use as makeshift flares while also carrying your missiles. You don't have an afterburner, so the rockets do work okay as flares. It's not reliable though, and obviously it won't work against radar missiles. Also, the SRAMs this thing carries were buffed recently, but they're still quite literally hit or miss. Like, maybe you'll see it in the footage or not. I'm not sure what exact footage of the Harrier I'm going to have in the background. But while I was getting the footage for this video, there were many kills where I expected I fired it off and I didn't even look. I was like, that's a guaranteed kill. And yeah, it didn't. The only thing it has going for it is that if you actually do have a half decent game in it, the modifiers are actually quite good. But I would really recommend to take a miss on this and just get the MiG-21 bis. Next up, we have the 2S38. And this is the vehicle that I think is going to have the most pushback, shall we say. Because there was and still is a lot of hype around this vehicle, but I personally am not buying it. Well, I did buy it, unfortunately, but I'm disillusioned. So what do you get with this thing? Well, you get a 57mm cannon that fires twice a second. It fires APFSDS with 220mm of flat pen, or what is basically the same shell as the T-3457, an APHE shell. And that's it. You're a gigantic box with a gun on. You do also get thermals, which is quite nice. The thing is, why wouldn't I just play the BMP2? It's nearly 2 entire BRs lower than this thing, and yeah, it doesn't have as much pen, but you're only realistically going to be able to pen the sides of MBTs, and if you're shooting the sides of MBTs, it doesn't really matter if you have 90mm or 200mm. Like, both of them work out just about the same if you're doing that anyway, in my opinion. And then on top of that, the BMP gets an ATGM, which puts in serious work. Like, I would go as far as to say the lack of an ATGM on the 2S38 makes it worse than the BMP2 at 8.7. That's my personal opinion. And yeah, okay, maybe some really sweaty guys can make this vehicle work, but this is absolutely not a tank for the average player. And I honestly can't say enough how much I hate playing this thing. But obviously I kept playing it because I want to get my money's worth, right? And I also have the terms, which, you know, is the same BR, so they fit fairly well together. Its one saving grace is the fact that it gets HEVT and target tracking. So it's pretty good against drones and helicopters or even low-flying aircraft, and that's how I've gotten most of my use out of this thing. Also, it does get a drone, but, you know, all light tanks at this BR have a drone, but yeah, you can use the drone as well for some spotting and get some fairly decent rewards for doing that. I think in all, I've destroyed more air targets than tanks with this thing. I don't know that for certain, I haven't checked my stats, but it certainly feels like it. I mean, it makes sense, the name in Russian is Derovatsiya ПВО.
Расчеты ПВО в полной боевой готовности.
My pronunciation isn't great, but it basically means AA variant, right? And the lesson here is not to get swept up in the hype, like I did when this thing came out. Next up, we have another plane, which is the A5C, which in my opinion is another irredeemably bad plane. Even getting the footage for this video was suffering. So what do we get? On paper, this plane might actually seem fairly okay. It gets flares, it can destroy 2 bases, it gets a pair of Magic Wands, which are decent missiles, it has flares. But there are 2 major issues with this plane. First, it's slow, and it has poor acceleration. Secondly, it handles like an absolute bus. At least planes like the Su-25 and the A-10 can somewhat pull a decent turn. This plane is a bit faster, but you lose all of that performance as the trade-off. And basically every fighter at your battle rating is going to catch you, and then when they do catch you, there's very little that you're going to be able to do about it. Plus, the base bombing meta now is all about speed, which is something you absolutely do not have. So if you stay low and go with your team, when the fighters pounce at you from above, because they will, they're going to go for you first because you're the easy target. But also, if you try and stay with your team, they're going to zoom off ahead of you anyway and get all of the bases. And you'll be alone, and you can't run, and you can't turn, so you're just doomed. The other option is to climb out up to about 22,000 feet or around 7 kilometers. That's where your plane is the fastest, and then you just orbit the battlefield waiting for the bases to come back. And while you do so, just pray that nothing with good radar missiles is at altitude, and that if they are, they don't commit to following you. The best way to play this thing is probably as just an opportunistic missile bus, diving down on distracted enemies that are dogfighting and just lobbing magics at them. The problem is that you only have 2 of them, and if you get into a dogfight, almost anything that you run into will beat you. Honestly guys, just get the J7D. Unfortunately though, it wasn't actually in the game at the time I got the A5. Last but not least, we have the VIDAR. Again, this was another vehicle that was really hyped up when it first came out. It gets modern thermals, it gets a laser rangefinder. All of this, bear in mind, is at 8.0 BR, which is unheard of, really. And initially, it seems really good. It also has a fairly decent reload of 6 seconds with an ace crew. And it also has access to HEVT for firing at aircraft. So what's the issue then? Literally everything else. Starting with the HEVT, it's only really effective against stationary hovering helicopters. Like, yeah, with some brain power you can lead targets or whatever, but the gun handling, well, the gun handling is abysmal. The turret traverse and elevation is glacially slow, which makes it difficult to engage air targets and ground targets alike. And you get just 2 degrees of gun depression. Also, your vehicle is gigantic and easy to hit. The optics are also a mixed bag. They're really zoomed in, which is good for sniping, but it's bad for pretty much anything else. And that's exactly the problem with the VIDAR. This thing is good on large maps with long sight lines of, say, 1 kilometer or more that doesn't have many hills or sand dunes, for example. You know, that lets you actually abuse your laser rangefinder. And of course, obviously, sitting on top of a hill is just complete suicide, and playing around them is just a nightmare with your 2 degrees of gun depression. If you play this thing close in, while the engine is decent and the turning is fairly responsive, the gun is so clumsy and the sights are so bad, it makes getting any kind of fast shot off just impossible because you're going to need to aim for weak spots. The laser rangefinder makes this quite possible, but again, not in a fast reaction scenario, especially against a moving target. So really the problem isn't necessarily the VIDAR itself, it's more the fact that the current map pool doesn't really allow you to utilize your strengths properly. So that's been my list of regrets. I hope you guys enjoyed the video as much as I did not enjoy getting the footage for it. If you did, don't forget to smash that like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.